We had the perfect plan to furnish our Airbnb. This is our 8th time doing it. We thought that we had this thing nailed down. Smooth sailing, no problems. But then a Facebook marketplace deal almost completely derailed the whole thing. And I'm going to share with you exactly what I learned furnishing my Airbnb. Guys, this video is all about not just what I expect to pay when I furnish my units, but also what I actually paid, the lessons I learned along the way, so you don't make the same mistakes. Guys, all of that and more on your favorite channel, Investing in Bryan-College Station, your go-to channel to grow your wealth through real estate in my favorite towns of Bryan and College Station, Texas. Guys, this is the second video in a 4-video series where I break down exactly not just why or how I run my midterm rentals, but how I set them up and how much money I make off these things. I'm going to share with you in the last video of the series exactly how much money I make, but today I'm going to tell you how much money I spent furnishing the dang thing. So stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. For starters, let's talk about exactly how I plan to furnish my Airbnbs. Keep in mind that this is a 2-bedroom apartment. It is the 6th 2-bedroom apartment that I've furnished. So I've got a pretty thorough spreadsheet that I use for the planning purposes and for the furnishings. If you want to copy that spreadsheet, go ahead and click the link in the description below and I will shoot you that spreadsheet. Just a little gift from me to you to help you stay hopefully more organized. And it has been critical to helping us make sure that we have all the things that we need in the Airbnb. So I'm not going to go through absolutely everything that I furnish my Airbnbs with, every piece of furniture. Let's just talk about some decisions I made when furnishing my Airbnbs and why I did that. Starting with the bedrooms, because of course, everybody who's staying in Airbnb wants to know where they're sleeping. When it comes to sleeping arrangements, I'm a big fan of queen beds. Most of my Airbnbs just have 2 queen beds, but in this particular case, we did have a larger bedroom, and I'm still toying with the idea of a king bed driving more revenue. So we went with 1 king and 1 queen bed. Another thing that we've done in the past that we didn't do with this Airbnb is a pull-out sofa. Pull-out sofas have 3 issues. 1, they're not comfortable. So no one really likes the idea of having to sleep on a pull-out sofa. And if I'm a midterm rental guest, I'm definitely not sleeping on a pull-out sofa for a month. 2, they are very cumbersome. Moving a pull-out sofa is miserable. And since I move most of the furniture myself, I don't like moving those damn things. And then 3, and finally, they're expensive. So they push me over my budget, and I really don't necessarily think that it's worth the extra cost. So we don't do the pull-out sofas. When it comes to sleeping arrangements, this Airbnb will sleep 4, 2 in the queen, 2 in the king. In terms of mattresses, people ask about that. We usually just go with a 10 to 12 inch memory foam off of Amazon. If you follow the link and get the spreadsheet, I'll have the actual brand that I use, and I've had relatively good reviews from my guests on those mattresses. Sofa, let's talk about living room real quick. Coffee table, all those things, super important. But when it comes to TVs, I stick to a pretty simple 55-inch TV. You can get them relatively inexpensive. I think around $200 to $300 for a smart Samsung TV. And in our case, because of the size of the room and the type of guests that we have, that's more than enough. Now, if you're going to go with a bougier Airbnb, maybe you need a larger TV, 70-inch TV. And maybe if you're a more remote, you want like a smaller one because you're like all about the experience. But in this case, 55 is a good fit. Smart TV is good to go. We get the smart TV rather than the Roku because it's just easier. We provide internet, so that's a no-brainer. We don't provide cable, so that's worth noting. Most of our guests want to sign on to their normal streaming apps, so we just let them do that. Speaking of technology, let's jump into that real quick. I am in a unique position that I have a 4-plex. Rather than pay for internet for every single unit, I pay for your internet for 1 unit, and then I use TP-Link as my routers, specifically their Deco, DECU. Again, all this is on the spreadsheet, but we use those to create repeaters for the adjacent apartments. I use smart thermostats. I really like the idea of a smart thermostat so that I can limit how hard that AC is working, because of course I'm paying for the utilities, and because I'm a dad, I got to make sure that's always set at 72. Just kidding. We let our guests adjust the thermostat. When they leave, I want to make sure it goes back to 72. We had been using Nest. However, in the 3 years I've been doing this, I've been burned by these Nest units before where they failed on me after only about a year or so. And I really don't like the idea of my guests not having AC or having to make an AC service call, particularly here in Texas where we'll hit 110 at least 20 times this summer. So naturally, we don't want our guests without AC. Other things that you want to make sure you have for a Airbnb setup would be a Ring doorbell. That's great to see who's coming and going. That's the only security that I have on my properties. I don't have all the cameras all the way around. I don't think it's necessary. I also use Yale for my smart lock. Here's the kicker and why I use Yale and the type of Yale that I use. So I use Yale because it integrates very well with Airbnb. Not perfectly, mind you. There are some times where my guests don't get the code, but otherwise the guests sign up and they automatically get an email or message through Airbnb, and that has the code, which is phenomenal. I love that. I don't have to worry about it. Before doing that, the amount of times that I forgot to send a code was ridiculous. Sometimes our guests show up though and they didn't get a code. Well, the good news is in that case, I can just hop on and send them the code. Or if for some reason the lock's not working, maybe the internet's down and it wasn't able to send the code to the lock, right? We have a backup. So when I buy these Yale locks, I make sure there's a physical key, whoop, whoop, that you can still use. Some Yale locks don't have a physical keyhole, and that is problematic because if it fails, then there's no way to unlock the door. However, we have a physical key that we can still use, and I put a lockbox right over on the side of the house. So if they get locked out, they call me at 11 p.m. Greg, I got your Airbnb. The lock doesn't work. What the heck? Go around to the side of the building. The code is 0000. Go ahead and grab the key. Let yourself in. I'll have someone over there tomorrow to make sure it works. This way, I don't have to go all the way out to my Airbnb to let these folks in. They're not waiting on me. It's a very simple process. No harm, no foul. Just a problematic lock. We'll take care of it in the morning. That allows you to sleep more, and that is important. When it comes to kitchen stuff, pretty bare bones. If you do a midterm rental, I recommend having slightly nicer cooking gear, be it the bowls, the pots, and the pans. Just have something slightly nicer because your guests will be spending more time cooking than maybe a short-term guest might do. Also, we provide basic spices, salt, pepper, and then a basic spice rack so they have all that available for them. And then I provide Folgers coffee because that's what I drink. If it's good enough for me, it's good enough for my guests. Besides that, we don't provide a ton in terms of other cooking stuff, flour or ketchup, mustard, those kind of things. Generally, these folks will buy what they need at the store because they're going to make a grocery run anyway. If they leave something behind that is useful, then I'll just leave it in the fridge for the next person as long as it's not expired. And that's a better way to furnish those things like the condiments. And then lastly, make sure you've got a decent amount of cleaning supplies. They're there for a month. It's helpful for you and for them if they have the ability to clean up after themselves. So providing more cleaning supplies than you might otherwise is always a good idea. Again, guys, this is an overview. I've got the in-depth list of exactly how we furnish our Airbnbs. Just click the link in the description below. We'll help you out. Speaking of the description below, guys, my contact information is there. And I would love for you to reach out if you've got more questions about Airbnbs or you want to invest in Bryan-College Station. That's actually what we specialize in here at Schwartz Realty Group, and we'd love to help you grow your wealth here in town. So feel free to reach out to me. While you're at it, you might as well like and subscribe, but that's up to you. All right, so back to the story at hand, how we almost had a complete catastrophe with this Airbnb. So I recommend that when you're furnishing an Airbnb, you start off on Facebook Marketplace. Buy the big items cheap on Facebook Marketplace, use nice quality furniture, and then if you have to, about 2 weeks out, if you aren't able to find a piece of furniture, just go ahead to Amazon or Ashley Furniture or Rooms to Go, pick something up. But I usually don't love the quality of that furniture, so ideally I'll buy something nice and used before I buy something cheap and new. Hopefully that makes sense, and that's a good way to stay within budget. And that's exactly what we were doing. We were on Facebook Marketplace, my wife and I, and she found a gentleman who was selling a nice coffee table and a mirror that would fit great in our Airbnb. We go to his house, negotiating on the coffee table, and he's like, hey, do you like the bedroom set? We're like, yeah, it's not our favorite, but it's nice. He's like, what about this bedroom set? Well, that one's a lot nicer. Yeah, that would look good in our Airbnb. He said, well, what about the whole house? He was selling everything in his house. And this is a well-appointed house. We had a 70-inch screen TV, a 55-inch screen TV. We had the dining room table, the chairs. He's selling everything in the house. The doohickeys and knickknacks on the walls. That's a technical jargon for junk you put on your walls to make it look cute. But all the way down to the shaker cups in his cabinets. Guys, he was selling everything. I'm looking around thinking, okay, well, it cost us about $8,000 to furnish it. What would I pay this guy? He says, what about $4,000? I'm like, shoot, 50% off, done deal. I shook his hand. 2 or 3 days later, the movers came and literally took everything. If it wasn't a personal item, we took it. Knives, shaker cups. We even got the nice picture on his wall, the Last Supper. I'll have a look right there. That's it. He gave us that. Just, take it. Everything. I don't want to take anything with me. I'm moving to Dallas. I don't want anything. So our movers literally, if it wasn't bolted to the house, we took it. That's when things got kind of expensive and became a huge pain in my backside because I didn't really know what I was buying. I didn't test everything out. I didn't pay a lot of attention to what we were buying. It all looked nice, even there in the apartment. And there was a lot of stuff that we didn't need. Ultimately, $4,000 to buy it all, but then I had to spend $1,700 in moving expenses. And that's from moving stuff into our storage unit for about a month and a half, and then moving from the storage unit over to the Airbnb itself. And there's the storage unit. That's another $260. So now I have nearly $2,000 in expenses that I didn't budget for. The good news is I only paid $4,000, but now I'm $6,000 into my $8,000 budget, and I really don't know what I have. So what I learned is I had a bunch of stuff that didn't work in the apartment. The queen bed set was not a great fit. The bedside tables associated with it were really beat up. There was a TV table that wasn't going to be a good fit. The couch reeked of dog and was actually broken in the back piece, so that wasn't a good fit. The king mattress was grossly stained. There were bowls and pots and pans that just weren't going to fit in our Airbnb. They weren't the quality we were looking for, and they were pretty beat up. So ultimately, not only did I have to move all this stuff out of his house, eventually into storage, and eventually into my Airbnb, I then, with my wife and my daughter and my mom and my grandmother, had to sort through all this junk, determine what we were going to keep, what we were going to sell, and then I had to move all the stuff that we were going to sell to my garage so we could continue setting up the Airbnb. You can get that this got to be a little bit of a pain in my backside. This is our 6th time doing this, mind you. I thought this was going to be a really smooth process. We've had much easier experiences on our last 2, so I was not ready for this headache. And we also found out one of the TVs didn't work that we were planning on putting in the living room, so now we got to buy a new TV. The 70-inch TV was just overkill, so we were like, hey, we'll sell that. So there were a lot of stuff that we were selling and moving around and having to buy new stuff. What we ended up doing was selling about $1,000 worth of items we didn't need. And I guess the silver lining right now is there's a few items we still need to sell, to include a very expensive new, it's like $2,000, TV table, console table, whatever you want to call it. Right now it's in the Airbnb, but if we can sell that thing for $500 or $700, we're going to do that to recoup some of our costs. But we still needed to buy stuff. So we made about $1,000 off the stuff we sold, but we still needed stuff. Like I said, we needed that TV, we needed a couch. And then there's the smart lock and the Ring doorbell and all these other things that we had to buy. If you look at the list, you can kind of see that adds up to about $3,000. If you're following along at home, that's $4,000 in furnishings. $3,000 after the fact puts us at $7,000, plus roughly another $2,000 in moving expense and storage unit. We're right there at our $8,000 limit. So I paid right at my budget with a ton more headache and effort than I ever planned. Basically, guys, my takeaway from this is if you are going to buy a whole house, and I know if you're in one of the bigger cities, Houston, Austin, Dallas, you can find people who are running Airbnbs who are literally selling a completely furnished Airbnb and you can buy everything in it. It's not a bad idea. I would recommend spending a lot more time up front, making sure everything you're buying is actually worth what you're paying and it's going to be worth the headache. I really would have liked to get all this stuff for closer to $3,000 if I was going to do it again, just because a lot of it was much more beat up than I initially expected. But I do think that I will consider buying whole living room sets, bedroom sets again. I think that's a good way to furnish a place relatively inexpensively. Also, if you're picking up just a few pieces of furniture, I can move that myself with a trailer. I don't need to hire the movers, so there's some savings there as well. Ultimately, guys, what you want to do is stick to my original plan, buy off Facebook Marketplace, buy as much nice used furniture as possible. Then if you need to, go down to Ashley Furniture like we did to buy a sofa for like $1,000. Use the spreadsheet to keep yourself organized so you don't forget anything and make sure it looks cutesy. My last tip is save all the furnishings, all the decor, all the stuff you're gonna put on the wall to the very end. We usually go to Home Goods or At Home or Target to pick up those doohickeys and knickknacks. You don't have to go overkill. We're not making a themed Airbnb, just something that's comfortable to live in. So you should have a few things on the walls, but don't worry if every wall isn't decked out, and you don't have to have the fuzzy looking whatever this thing is that people put in Airbnbs. You don't need that. It's a midterm rental. You'll do just fine without it, or so I hope. Guys, that's this video. Our next video that I'm going to drop on this particular series will be about how I set up my Airbnbs. So this is the nuts and bolts within the Airbnb software and Price Labs, the software that I use to help with my dynamic pricing. I will show you the exact customization I put in those that has allowed me to maximize the income on this midterm rental. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have that within the next month or so. But I will have a video every single week. Of course, these videos are all about growing your wealth through real estate in Bryan-College Station, because that's what I'm doing, that's what my clients are doing, and that's what I hope that you can do as well. So make sure you like and subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified when the next video hits. My only ask, guys, is until next time, you take it easy.